Out of the gates, ready to go. Outkick 360 is back. Happy Friday to everyone. Alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're finding the show. YouTube, we hope that you'll hit the subscription button to the Outkick 360 channel. You'll ring the bell. That way you know we go live every day, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, across the Outkick network. We have the VolQuest Power Hour with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com. That's coming up in an hour. A lot to hit in the meantime. Gentlemen, what's up?
It is a big Friday. Every day is big on this show, but we need to make a habit, and I think we've done this so far, of really closing strong. We are fourth quarter players on this team. This is the fourth quarter of the week. We come into this day filled with energy, ready to go, ready to bang hats. I get here early this morning, and Lance Lee's already in his production spot, ready to go. He's banging hats. He's channeling my guy, Cactus Jack, right here, that I was channeling to start the show. We're going to do that throughout the show today, and I'm excited for it, boys.
How about this? My tooth cracking incident that's a nightmare scenario for me that I lived in real life, I didn't dream about, but my wife had a dream about spitting out a constant mouthful of teeth. So I transferred the dream to her. I mean, that's no coincidence that it happens to me, and she then subsequently has my nightmare dream about her teeth. That's weird.
Isn't there a psychiatric explanation?
Yeah,
for
we
that
discuss
dream?
this every time.
But I feel like there's a specific thing that you're thinking about when you have that dream because it's such a common dream.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what that is. The dream element of it doesn't matter to me anymore, but when it happens to me in real life.
Yeah.
I'm done with the psychiatric element of the dream.
Paul's having a tough week over here, health-wise. That bagel incident.
You really saw me, but you weren't here yesterday to discuss it. But you were long gone, and then all of a sudden you came back in when I'm like doing the look away.
Yeah.
Don't look at me. Did you see it?
I mean, I didn't see. You didn't smile where I could see the toothless face, but I saw you.
The horror on my
saw
face?
you that night with the temporary tooth, and I couldn't tell a difference.
I was normal. Yeah, I'm normal now. I just thought it was weird I transferred the dream. So I don't wish it on any of you, and I'm sad that Teresa had to endure it.
We're going to transfer this discussion into another discussion now.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to segue that. No more toothless talk, no more dream talk, no more even Cactus Jack talk. We're just going to go right into the show now.
You guys more interested this weekend in the Open or the NBA Finals?
Way more interested in the Open.
Yeah, except the early morning thing is tough, though Ripley might facilitate some of that for me.
Well, I don't even think you have to watch it live. I mean, NBC will be airing this throughout the weekend, and I think that speaks volumes to where the NBA is right now. It's a series that's tied 2-2, and they play tomorrow night in prime time, and all three of us would rather watch the British Open.
Though we talk about
this.
We would also rather watch the British Open in tape delay.
We talk about this all the time. Is it hard for you guys once you know, or will you try not to look at a leaderboard? If I know what it is, it's a lot harder for me to look at it. When I know a soccer score, it's much harder for me to watch the game I have on tape. If I know the British Open leaderboard, I'm much less inclined to watch it. Now, if I could not know the leaderboard, I'm much more inclined to watch it. So, but a lot of it has to do with what other people do, or if I happen to be on Twitter, which I'll try to avoid, and I peripherally see something. Wow, Morikawa had a great round today. Then I'm like, oh, hell.
And he's 9 under. He's the current leader at the Open, although as we sit here live on Friday, there's still players out on the course, including Oosthuizen, who is in the afternoon flight, along with Jordan Spieth, who is just rounding out the front 9 at the Open. He's 2 shots back as we sit here right now. Chad, you had an interesting dilemma at FanDuel. FanDuel, you place some bets on players to win the Open prior to the tournament. I've done this as well. I don't have the same level of payout that they're offering you. You can cash out now for a significant amount more than what you put in, but you're cashing out on players that are currently in the top 3.
By the way, the TV schedule, really not that bad. It's early morning when it starts, but on NBC, it's going to run 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, that's not bad.
So
that's not as bad as I was
so
thinking.
7 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sunday. Not that bad. You can watch starting at 4 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday and Sunday on Golf. I don't even think it's still Golf Channel. I noticed they've rebranded just to Golf, not even Golf Channel at times. So my dilemma, Hutton, with the cash out on that, I bet $3 on Colin Morikawa, bet $5 on Louis Oosthuizen. I polled the room
These were before it started.
This is a dilemma that I'm sure bettors get into.
You did this before the tournament.
Before the tournament started. So the possibility, I think, was for $150 in payback for Morikawa if he won on $3. It gave me a cash out option of $20 right now. So I would have made $17 on the bet. Louis Oosthuizen, I bet $5 on. I think it's like $185 is the payoff if he wins. Still on the course right now, and the payout was $30. So $10, I think $10 to $20 more. And you guys made the decision for me and said, or maybe Jacob Swanson did, go ahead and cash out on Morikawa. You can bet it again if you want over the weekend, and then stick with Oosthuizen. That's what I did.
The thinking being Morikawa's in the clubhouse. A lot of people can catch him. Oosthuizen's still playing. I think we all agreed kind of as being a big part of the thinking. I also think, from everything I see and read, Oosthuizen and this course and his game really allow for the possibility for him to win. I don't know as much about Morikawa's fit for this and everything. Oosthuizen is a good links player.
Well, Oosthuizen is always right there, right? So he's finished second a bunch of times. I think the thinking is he's going to play good enough golf longer, especially with more round to play today, to stick around and have a chance on Sunday.
And your cash out chance will remain
He's the
solid.
best player who hasn't won multiple majors out there. He's 2 strokes from having 3 majors. He is 6 strokes from having 5 majors. He is 12 strokes from having 7 majors. He's been very close in tournaments, in major tournaments, but he has not won. He's won 1. And the course here is set up for his style of play. I mentioned this yesterday. I like Oosthuizen more than I like DeChambeau, and at the end of the day, you saw what happened to DeChambeau's style. He can't drive it all over the course just to get close to the hole. Now, it was impressive that he had such a miserable day off the tee and finished 1 over, despite being all over that course.
He was very
But
candid.
he only hit 29% of his fairways yesterday. And at the Open, with the rough and the bunkers the way they're set up, you can't do that and be in contention on Sunday. Oosthuizen's more patient with what the course is going to bring him. Now, that's why he hasn't been close to other courses that maybe DeChambeau is winning, because other courses are set up for the long ball, the long off the tee. Oosthuizen's not that. But I think his patience can pay off over the weekend. He's going to be right there.
That's a good bet.
And already through 7 holes today, that lead for Morikawa down to 1, with both Spieth and Oosthuizen at 8 under. It was 9 under, 7 under. They're now at 8 under still with 11 holes left to play in today's round. I like that. Look, I bet on Louis Oosthuizen for a reason. I like him in British Opens. I like the fact that he's been getting closer and closer, seemingly, in the last year and a half. And I think he's got a great shot to be right there on Sunday. He should be right there on Sunday. I also think the other storyline here that I'm really paying attention to, the return of Jordan Spieth. Well, we've been waiting for this return to relevance, and he's been close in some major tournaments. He's been right there, and then you'll see one where he doesn't make the cut or barely makes the cut. But can Jordan Spieth be a factor on Sunday? Because this also is a style of golf, this link style in the British Open, that benefits Jordan Spieth.
Well, he's 3 under today so far through 10. So he's also playing very well, and he can overtake the lead during our show. Another American, along with Morikawa, that we'll be watching this weekend. I just love the tour. I love the European tour and the way this is set up at the Open. With I mentioned yesterday, Chad, you missed this. They have not cut the rough since May on this course. I mean, they have hayfields. You see Mickelson, who is 12 over. He's obviously missing the cut.
Miserable.
I don't know how he hit this golf ball, but he was like mowing the mowing high grass, like cutting hay,
like a scythe
with a pitching wedge, and I don't know how he found the golf ball whenever he swung. He made contact and he got out of the rough, and that's basically all he could do because he couldn't even see the ball. You could not physically see the ball when he's standing over it.
Bold move to not just take a drop at that point and say you lost your ball instead of trying to hit it out of a hay patch. Seems to be difficult.
Well, I mean, it's in play.
Yeah.
And he found it. I mean, they have the spotters and the everyone there.
Could you
looking
claim
for it.
ignorance and say, no, I don't see it? And they're like, well, Mr. Mickelson, your ball's right there. No, I don't see it. That's not my ball. I don't see it. I still can't see it.
The FanDuel, very dangerous on these tournaments with the top 5, top 10, top 20.
Yes, I love those.
I just look at it and look at it. I watch this little preview show that I have where 3 people I like a lot who have great personalities and seem to really know what they're talking about. They give you, 4 players that they really like, and then they give you 4 long shots. And then I didn't watch this show until after the first round, so then I go see how they're all doing on the leaderboard, and then I decide, $1 or $3 or $5 on and you can spend a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah.
Game 5 tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central tip-off, 9 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Bucks and Suns back in Phoenix, where the Bucks were down 9 late in Game 4, rallied back. Giannis with the unbelievable block on the oop opportunity for Ayton that is right up there with a LeBron block at the rim from years ago that changed the course of that game. It was a tie game at the time. Bucks go on to win and tie the series, and now it's back in Phoenix, where Phoenix has played very well, and Booker has played extremely well, albeit for one game in this series. Which Devin Booker shows up, and Chris Paul down the stretch, a very uncharacteristic turnover late in the final minute of Game 4. Does he bring what he brought to Game 1 in Game 5? If he does, this game's all Phoenix.
But before we talk Game 5, I had 2 things I didn't get to yesterday about Game 4 that I found remarkable. The second more remarkable than the first. In Game 4, 24 points for Milwaukee off 17 turnovers. That was kind of the game, right? If you do that, you're going to win. The Suns were plus 11.1% in field goal percentage and lost. NBA teams were 171-1 this season when they outshot opponents by 11%. That's how unusual this game was. The Suns were 29-0 this season when they outshot the opponent by at least 6%. So they nearly doubled that up and still lost. That's how bad a failure this game was for the Suns in terms of how they outshot an opponent from the field and found a way to lose. If they somehow lose this series, and Chad Hutton and I were saying we're still totally thinking the Suns win this. I don't know where you are. But if they find a way to lose this series, Game 4, I think, is going to be the game that haunts them in terms of statistically turning the ball over killed them, and you still shouldn't lose it based on how much you outshot them from the field.
It felt like a missed opportunity.
One that got away.
They won't win the series now because of that missed opportunity. Because everything statistically, other than the turnovers you mentioned, you look at it and you think, boy, the Suns should have won this game, won a close game, gone back home and had a chance to close it out. It feels like any one series to me now, and a big part of that is Chris Paul, because while Chris Paul has been great for the most part in this playoff run, we saw on Wednesday night that when he's not operating at the highest level and he's not an assist factory, and he's not getting to his spot and hitting that 17-foot little stop and pop fadeaway shot, the Suns are very susceptible. I think that this whole series now rides, it's not even Booker, it rides on the play of Chris Paul. I could argue the series rides on the play of Chris Middleton. Also on Milwaukee, I think Giannis, a little bit more of a given with his volume of shots and what he's going to do defensively, rebounds, everything else. I really think the 2 Chris's, Chris Middleton, Chris Paul, the key for both teams. And if you're Phoenix now, you're relying on a 36-year-old point guard to play at the optimum peak level at this point in his career. I think that's a risky proposition. I also think that we've seen from Chris Paul in the series and throughout the playoffs, it can happen, right? He can be great, and he can lead this team. But I think Chris Paul is the key now.
What's the feeling about it? There's something about him now that I'm watching him a lot more than I've ever watched him that I don't like, but I can't put my finger on it.
Is it the insurance commercials?
Well, they don't help.
Is it the Cliff Paul references that you're not a fan of?
They don't help. They don't help.
You can't put your finger on why you don't like him?
Yeah, why I don't like his game.
Oh.
I don't know why you wouldn't like Chris Paul. I don't know. I can't answer that because I love Chris Paul. In terms of his game, There's something about his game you don't like?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I'm not a Chris Paul guy for some reason. I love Booker. I think it's hard not to love Booker. But there's something about Chris Paul that I don't know. But I still think the Suns are winning this series.
One thing I've noticed, Chad, with Chris Paul specifically, something's up with his left hand. He was favoring that in the previous series, and he was holding that going to a commercial break, I think in the third quarter of Game 4. He was messing with his left hand, and I don't think he drove or took a dribble towards the left in the fourth quarter. I didn't watch it as closely as examining what hand he's dribbling with, but that's something I'm watching for in Game 5 because that's critical to his overall game. I would watch the hand issue. I don't know if it's a wrist or a hand, but it was something that was bothering him in a previous series, and I think it's re-aggravated. Also, I would double it up. I would say, are you betting on Booker, the combination of Booker and Paul, or Middleton and Holiday? Because we know Giannis is showing up. Which group are you taking? Because both groups are up and down. We saw game 3 for Booker. He was nowhere to be found. He was terrible. Game 4.
10 points in that game.
Game 4, we saw turnovers from Chris Paul. Middleton has been up and down in a big way. It's either you're getting 35 or you're getting 16.
See,
there's a big gap between those two players.
Game 3 to me, though, you and I talked about this yesterday. Game 3 to me is the throwaway game. Though Game 3 to me was the Milwaukee has to save itself. They're coming home.
Well, it wasn't a throwaway game for Milwaukee.
Right.
It was the game for them.
But I'm not looking at Booker not scoring as much in that game or any of the Phoenix statistical stuff as like benchmarky or disappearing. I was Milwaukee winning that game in a blowout to me was the most kind of predictable thing in this series. Coming home down 0-2. If they were losing that, they were getting swept probably, and they're not bad enough in comparison to get swept. So statistically, I'm not taking. If you've disappeared for a game in this series and it was one of the other 3 games, then I find you inconsistent. That game, I kind of give you more of a pass, if you get what I'm saying, because that to me was going to be the most skewed game of the series.
Well, here's what strikes me about your question, Hutton, and this is a bigger idea that I've had throughout this series. I don't know how to answer your question. I think it's a toss-up. I think it's a great question because there's no real clear answer. Booker and Paul or Middleton and Drew Holiday for the last 3 games of this series, I have no clue. And we preach parity in sports all the time. That's what we want. We want everyone to have a shot. We want the ultimate meritocracy. We want to go into games not knowing what the hell is going to happen and be a complete toss-up. I see that now with the rest of this series.
Yeah.
I see that with these 2 franchises, these 2 teams, the way they're built. This is not, there are superstars, not to the LeBron James level in this series, but there are superstars in this series. But for those that bemoan the NBA and say, well, we know what's going to happen in the finals when the season starts, right? You know pretty much one of these, at least one team we know most of the time. This team's going to make it. This super team, this star-led team is going to be right there in the finals. You've got an NBA Finals with 2 markets not accustomed to success, with 2 teams with stars that one at least maybe needs to get over the hump to show they're a true superstar. But there is all of this intrigue and all these questions about the series, but that's still not registering with people. I don't get the sense, even when we don't have the answers to a bunch of questions, there's a bunch of questions about this series. It's still an area where people are not tuning in and rushing to this series for the drama of the unanswered questions.
But those duos have been great in flashes, and those tandems are the reason why both of these teams are in the NBA Finals. Just rewind to the series. Booker has a busted nose and he's wearing a face shield, and we see Chris Paul step up against the Clippers. Meanwhile, in Milwaukee, in a back-and-forth series against the Hawks, it's Giannis who goes down, and all of a sudden, Middleton steps up in a big way. He plays like a number 1 player. So, and Holiday starts driving the lane and making an impact. So which of those groups helps this team win a best-of-3 now as they go to Game 5?
Oddly, and I think you're asking a good question, oddly, probably to a large degree because of recency bias. If you're asking me to choose between those 2 tandems, I'm taking Middleton and Holiday. And I still feel like the Suns are going to win, though. So I'm kind of splitting it.
There's no way the Suns win unless Booker is a huge part of winning that bet that I'm putting out.
I think Booker. I think Booker is will be the best of the four. But if I had to pick a pair, I'd say Middleton to Holiday. I'm down on Paul.
Paul has stepped up in some big ways throughout the postseason. I think he does again tomorrow night. I'm watching the left hand to see how he favors going to one side or the other. That will dictate everything. But a healthy Chris Paul, I'm taking that duo of Paul and Booker.
The ratings battle between early morning on NBC and later at night on ABC is going to be a fascinating one this weekend to follow. British Open, you want to talk about every excuse to not rate well. You've got an international event taking place at an odd time versus a Game 5 between two teams tied at 2 games apiece in a pivotal Game 5. Who wins that ratings battle is going to be interesting to watch over the weekend.
Well, I mean, it's not a numbers-to-numbers comparison, but it's a who's doing well in their context. The Open isn't going to compare numbers-wise to the NBA, even with the NBA not doing well.
Well, and then when you look at Saturday and
thing,
Sunday
right?
of the British Open, I mean, that's not even the final round. You know, Sunday is the one you'd really probably compare it to a Saturday night because that's the final.
I've got ratings fatigue. Like, I'm interested in seeing what happens in all of these things. I'm not going to watch any of it start to finish because I've got stuff going on during the day both days, and because I don't watch NBA games start to finish generally as a rule. It's too big a time commitment, and the first half is too little of an influence to me over what happens in a game. But I've kind of got ratings conversation fatigue. So I hope there are bigger storylines present themselves, the answers to some of these questions that we're posing, and more moments like Giannis's defense of the alley and the oop that warrant.
Well, even if I wanted to have ratings fatigue, and there have been times where I've had
they're not going to be good.
Well, we can't. I can't have ratings fatigue on this show because that what dictates what we're talking about. So we have to follow what people are talking about in the ratings. We've talked a
lot about the NBA Finals for a thing that's slowly rated because it's what's going on in the world of sports.
But there's also, about the All-Star also game, what's going on in the world of sports is discussions of ratings and why sports aren't registering with people. That's something that's going on.
And we've discussed that thoroughly.
And the chat we had 2 weeks ago, Paul, was you wanted closer NBA games.
I do.
It's a series tied 2-2.
Close series.
And what has been a close series, and it's not rating well.
And the other night was close.
Now they're in prime time on Saturday night on ABC. So we kick it back to Phoenix. I'm intrigued with the series. I'm in on watching it, but I wonder how many across the nation will be doing the same. Coming up, we talk Conor McGregor, Tom Brady, and much more. Plus, hook 'em horns and horns down, upside down horns. The VY. We'll tell our inside story with the insult to VY and what the Big 12 is attempting to do in the rule book for 2021. That's straight ahead. First, though, mydrhank.com/outkick. Look, erectile dysfunction affects over half of all men. It does not make you have to feel like half of a man. Since 2017, My Dr. Hank has been making America hard again. My Dr. Hank helps you get low-cost ED meds to overcome the psychological and emotional barriers to getting ED treatment.
And you should not be embarrassed about any of this. It affects over half of men out there. But if you want to have something shipped to you discreetly, guess what? My Dr. Hank, they've got you. They can ship it to your home or office, and they can do so from a pharmacy in the United States.
Yeah, what an offer.
mydrhank.com/outkick. You go there, you sign up, you get 50% off your first subscription order. So cost not much of a factor here for you to try this out and see if it's what you need and if it's the right thing for you. 50% off mydrhank.com/outkick.
mydrhank.com/outkick. We are back. Outkick 360 across the Outkick Network. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscription button. You're automatically entered to win a Sony and Hertz Audison prize pack. It's a full car stereo system valued at over $2,500. We're going to have a drawing next month to all of our subscribers to the Outkick 360 channel. Big thanks to Sony and Hertz Audison for making it happen. Just subscribe and then hit that alert button, and you'll receive alerts every time we go live or post new content to the channel. Just search out Outkick 360. Conor McGregor says he had suffered from stress fractures in his left leg prior to UFC 264. He says that the UFC knew about this. Dana White, the chief medical doctor, Jeff Davidson, I believe is his name, who is a longtime physician there with the UFC, as well as the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which would sign off on any injuries that he would disclose prior to a fight. If true, this is a massive story behind the scenes of what went on to get McGregor in the ring. If not true, it's just another attempt at McGregor saving face.
If true, really bad form and like smacks of old school boxing, corruption kind of stuff, which is what kind of led to the death of boxing. Not that MMA's dying, UFC's dying, but this is the kind of stuff that happened. If not true, which is where my brain tends to go, just more of him continuing to talk and make excuses and not accept what happened, which I already said is a major turnoff to me, and I would think to a lot of people who are peripherally interested in this and haven't been, with him this whole voyage, but are interested in a fight here and there and the result. Shut up and disappear and go heal and whatever. I don't want to hear all your excuses. They're even in this sport, which is, I understand, made of being unconventional. There has to be, as I said, Chad, some element of accepting defeat. Because ultimately it's about somebody standing at the end and somebody's not, and he certainly wasn't standing because his leg was broken.
I will readily admit that I have different standards for different sports. Just like I have different standards for a comic book movie as opposed to a rom-com. I've got different standards for different sports. So I may sound hypocritical at times when I am telling a basketball player or basketball coach to stand up there and accept defeat and be angry about it and admit that they were bad. But when I talk about Conor McGregor, I say bring this stuff on. I don't care. He could be lying about it. He could be honest about it, and it could be some sort of scandal with the gaming or with the fight commission and all that. I don't care as long as it sells his next fight. And what this does to me, someone who's not paying attention to everything with UFC, but I'm paying attention to Conor McGregor, I'm paying attention to the big events, this helps sell the next fight. Him saying that he had a broken leg coming into it and that's the reason that this happened, to me helps sell the idea, whether he believes it or not, that he was not defeated, that he still has something left, and that there was a reason that he lost and it wasn't Poirier. I like it for that reason.
Why are you fighting with a broken leg if you're going to get defeated by it and use it as an excuse afterwards?
Did you see what he made?
So, okay, but it's a win-win for him. I make the money, I fight, and I either win or I blame a loss on a broken leg. It's BS.
It has
to be a consequence.
He claims that he had stress fractures, that the UFC, Dana White, and he's named all this in a video. UFC has not returned comment on this. They have another event this weekend in Vegas where there will be asked about it. So we'll get more clarification over the weekend tomorrow with the fight night that they're hosting. But McGregor sells, Paul. He's not going away. 1.6 million buys for UFC 264. Israel Adesanya, who I said is the up-and-coming star, was at UFC 263, 600,000 pay-per-view buys for him. That's the difference. McGregor's nearly tripling the buy rate anytime he's on TV. You will pay a premium price to watch him fight. And when I say you, the vast majority of people, bars, their bars were buying the fight at a large clip, a large number, so they could host people in their bars this past weekend. They weren't doing that for previous fights leading up to 264. There's a
fine.
big
There's nothing
interest
to sell
difference
now for 16 months while he recovers from this.
I think the whole thing is a sales pitch.
It may not be 16 months though.
Yeah, he's saying 1 year. I know his stated goal is to be back in fighting in exactly 1 year. But I think that the build up to the next one, it starts now. It started when he was on the mat with the broken leg. I think it all plays into this sales pitch. And Paul, you may be right in the end. He may look like an idiot. He may go out and get knocked out in round one next go around, and even more people are going to buy into the pay-per-view. He's going to make even more money. He's going to make millions more. And then by the time that he is shown to be a fraud with all this, at the end of his career, it's not going to matter.
Well,
because he sold all of us on the next fight.
Well, I'd like to
regardless.
watch him get his ass beat.
Well, what's going to happen?
It's already happened 2 times in a row.
He's going to go. He'll fight again in the UFC. He will then branch off and go back into boxing. You will see him get the Pacquiao fight. That's what he was training for prior to January's bout with Dustin Poirier. I mentioned this all came about at the end of last year because Pacquiao pulled out of a fight, a boxing match with McGregor, and so he challenged Poirier to a charity boxing match as a rematch to something that took place 4 or 5 years ago. So that's how it all came about. I think he'll circle back to the boxing ring. He will be back in UFC, and when he loses again in UFC, that's when the card takes a big hit. But I think he can play back the comeback one time and get the buy rate that we just saw.
I agree with that.
There's a massive fanfare to it, and it's the old Howard Stern line that program directors would use. People that love him listened to about 45 minutes more than the casual radio listener, which was about an hour. The people that hated Howard Stern listened double the amount of the people that loved him, nearly 2 hours per day. That's why McGregor sells.
And both of those audiences said, when asked why, said to see what he does next. And that's exactly what people want to see.
That's right.
with McGregor, to see what he does next. Now, look, I buy the interest in what he does next. He's just less and less likable, and he's fine with that. UFC's fine with that.
Yeah.
That sells. I respected what he did against Mayweather and his willingness to branch out in that, knowing that the odds
And he
were
did
very
better.
high
I think
that
we
he'd
all
lose.
agree.
And we watched the first couple of rounds of that fight, and he did pretty well.
So there's a salesmanship there too, that he shows up and actually puts on a show, and he's not just a tomato can against Mayweather, who's the best at his craft.
But I will say this, and you guys may disagree. There is something to be said at this stage of this kind of storyline for mysteriously kind of creating a little mystery and disappearing. Rocky went to Russia and was out of the limelight training in the snow, right? You go away for a while and everybody wonders, hey, what's McGregor up to and everything. Then you come back with a lot of fanfare. If I have to hear from you weekly or bi-weekly or monthly for the next year, to me, and I'm not saying I'm everybody, that's less intriguing than if you're gone for a while and you create a vacuum. Sometimes you create a vacuum that isn't filled, and then the vacuum demands, it creates a desire, a need, a want. Then when you come fill the vacuum, that's an event. If you don't create the vacuum, there isn't the desire for you that there could be. And I don't know if he can, you know him better, you know the sport better, but it doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's able to get out of the limelight for a while.
He stepped away and retired about 2 years ago and was silent for a couple months. And then the UFC came calling because they needed him.
Right, but they can't call now because he's not going to be able to do anything.
Right.
Zach on the YouTube chat says, Paul, is a leg that turned at a right angle just above the ankle not consequence enough for you? For McGregor, you freaked out over your tooth. Your thoughts?
I don't understand
the question. You said you want a consequence for him.
Oh, yeah, that's a consequence. The way
you said you want a consequence for McGregor.
He's a meme twice. Poirier slept him in January, and now you have one of the Paul brothers with a necklace where it's McGregor going to sleep on the mat, on the canvas, that he's donated to Poirier's charity for auction.
That's a consequence. The consequence, I want him to shut up.
As a consequence.
For a little while, as a result of the consequence.
I have a different mindset when it comes to fighting sports as opposed to other sports.
Yeah.
Things that I find likable in fighting sports, I would find not likable
in virtually everything else.
In a lot of other sports that I follow. A lot of team sports, for instance, that quality, the not shutting up, the not. It depends on the person at times, but the not accepting defeat and not just saying what it is, that, hey, we sucked out there and we got our ass whipped. When I don't like when people won't say that in team sports, coach or player. I like it in fighting sports.
Just flip it,
because
though.
it starts to sell the next one, and it's this sort of mano-a-mano, you or me, I'm going to win, you're not, you didn't win, something happened if you won, type mentality that I like with fighting.
Conor McGregor won this fight and Poirier is on the canvas before the end of the first round with a broken leg, talking crap, what is McGregor's reaction to that? Shut the hell up. What are you doing down there? I told you I was taking you off on a stretcher and you're going on a stretcher.
Well, that was Poirier's reaction, too.
Paul, how much
he was in the interview saying how, you can go back and watch it, I won. He can say whatever he wants. I mean, I won the fight. But I like that.
Yeah,
if Poirier did that, I would have liked. This is not just McGregor specific. If he's laying on the mat and he's still talking trash with a broken leg, I would like that in my fighting sports where I may not like it in other sports.
He's a fighter. McGregor's a fighter who's known as a showman.
Yeah.
But up until a recent run here, he has been a fighter that's a showman that shows up and delivers. Right. Exactly what he's saying. Mystic Mac is what they call him because he always says exactly what he's going to do in a fight, and he's been doing it up until this run with Nurmagomedov and Poirier. Poirier is a fighter who just wants to fight. And no one, in all of the crap that people are saying about McGregor, no one's giving him any credit 6 months ago for actually doing exactly what Paul Koharski is asking him to do. He shut up. He went to Abu Dhabi. He was extremely nice. He was gracious. He fought. He lost. He then came back and did a rematch with Poirier and became McGregor again. And now everyone's pissed off about it. 6 months ago, he was doing exactly what you wanted, but you didn't notice. That's why he went back to the old ways.
Fair.
That's the fight game, though. You have to have the antagonist. Two guys. If they had a card where guys hugged and shook hands at the end of it, it would be a karate meet down at a studio here in Nashville.
Well,
right?
But there's room between the karate meet hug and saying you're going to take a guy off on a stretcher, then getting stretchered off yourself.
Oh, no, that's
still talking crap.
That is sweet fight justice, is what that is. Like that. There is no denying he had to do exactly the opposite of what he was saying Poirier was going to do. And there's, Poirier's line was, karma isn't a bitch, it's a mirror.
Yeah.
So look in the mirror. That was his quote to McGregor after being carted off. I completely agree with Poirier. Poirier is being who he is. McGregor's being exactly who he is. And he was, and I mentioned going into the fight, I didn't buy into all the fake hype and talk because I felt like he was trying to build himself up mentally where Poirier was very even, and that's exactly who he is. You weren't expecting anything more than that.
Paul, you brought up Rocky earlier. I'll bring it back to Rocky with this and say there's a reason in those Rocky movies, which were scripted, Rocky never fought another plucky upstart underdog story that everyone was rooting for that was more soft-spoken, right? He always fought who was going to be the enemy of Rocky. It was either a communist or a brash, outspoken champion. I mean, there was always a reason for that, and Conor McGregor, to me, just serves that purpose as
Paul,
antagonist.
You're not wrong when you say that the fuse is towards the end of this. Like, there is a lifespan to what he's doing. And so if he comes back and immediately gets back into the octagon with Poirier and loses again, what does that do to the brand? Like, he's a brand. What if they pair him up against a tomato can in the UFC and he wins, then that lifts him. But really, what does that do once he gets back up to the rankings of fighting some of these top guys? That's a great question. He needs another win against a top opponent to be back to McGregor style and swag.
You think they go straight to a top opponent? You think they go tomato can?
I think they will attempt to run it back with Poirier. That's my guess. And there's a chance that Poirier's the champ. He's probably fighting twice before next summer. And if McGregor's back next summer, that would be his third fight since the one we just saw, where McGregor probably pops right in there and fights him. That's how I see it right now. If he's not the champ, they match him up immediately.
What's Dana White say tomorrow about this accusation of them knowing his leg was messed up?
He's going to call BS.
Got to deny.
He'll call BS, yeah. And look, that he can also say that the Nevada Athletic Commission signed off on it because there's an independent physician
just like there
that will examine him prior to every fight. They do this every fighter, and then you fill out. There's a lengthy sheet.
Medical.
It's a huge medical sheet that they used to release. You could.
It's a public document.
It's a public document through the commission.
Agency.
The commission came back yesterday and said that they're not releasing it because it is classified information for an individual, medical, which is interesting. So people now are asking Conor to just send a screenshot of what he filled out and signed and turned in to the commission that they stamp approved prior to the fight, which would have been Tuesday, Wednesday of fight week, probably.
I think the easiest response from Dana White would be, regardless of what I knew or didn't know, the Nevada Athletic Commission signed off on it.
And then they have to answer for it. What are they?
I mean, he doesn't even really have to answer. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. That there's a commission for a reason that has an independent person that checks these boxes, and they said he was okay.
And that's a public commission. They have to answer.
This would not be the first time.
Or share a document that's public that somebody with a FOIA request should be able to get a hold of, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a public agency.
Well, I mean, let's go back to, let's use another example. The Pacquiao-Mayweather fight on Cinco de Mayo. This was years ago. It was 2012 probably. Post-fight of that, Pacquiao said he had a bum shoulder coming into the fight that he didn't disclose. So this is nothing new of a fighter claiming that he had a previous injury that he did not disclose. McGregor's saying he disclosed it and that he fought anyway and that he was signed off and approved to fight. It's a little bit different in what McGregor's saying versus what Pacquiao said to Mayweather when Mayweather dominated him in 12 rounds. So that's just another super fight that I'm using as an example of a guy claiming that his shoulder was messed up and why he wasn't the same guy. This guy's leg just crumbled whenever he cracked. I think he broke his leg whenever he threw a left kick that connected with the right elbow of Poirier. And then he steps back a couple times, delivered a couple shots, then he crumbles right at the end of the round. It's a fascinating story now, and now we all await Dana White, who, as we know, will say exactly what's on his mind. So if he's not there tomorrow, they will release a statement from the fight night. They would have to. All the media will be in Vegas. Coming up, Brady, speaking of injuries, Brady claims or says he's been playing with a knee injury, a serious one at that, since he played for New England. He's coming off the Super Bowl run with Tampa Bay. Plus, there's a Team USA member that is out. Not Bradley Beal, another one. We'll tell you about that straight ahead, too. VolQuest Power Hour.
Plus this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Plus this.
Ooh, I'm scared.
Hook 'em horns, upside down. Outkick 360 rolls on. Outkick 360 across the Outkick network. Brent Hubbs from VolQuest.com coming up in about 10 minutes. We're going to talk Hook 'em horns in just a moment. Tom Brady played with a torn MCL in his left knee last year. He says that the injury occurred going back to his final season in New England. It's the same knee where he suffered the torn ACL back in 2008. And I mention this only because not only did he play at a very high level last year, but we've always pointed to it's going to be the injuries that dictate the end of Brady. Keep an eye on this as we go into another season where he'll turn 44 at some point during the year.
I imagine it worsened the last year.
I would think
because
so.
Otherwise, why wouldn't you have had it fixed between the last year in New England and the first year in Tampa?
You're right. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. It's just an intriguing note as we go into the season for Tampa, as they try to look to repeat. Kevin Love withdrawing from the Tokyo Olympic Games for Team USA.
For fatness.
Yeah, and injury recovery. He's got a calf injury that he says has really slowed him down. But Paul's not wrong here. He's out of shape. And watching him play, he just looks sluggish. So he's withdrawing. They could replace him, Chad, with Julius Randle, potentially Tobias Harris.
Yeah, they've got a couple guys.
And Bradley Beal's
out too in the health and safety protocols.
Huge relief to Jalen Rose.
Yeah. Well, you know Jalen Rose. There's only one race that can get that slot, and Jalen Rose would be happy with it. We certainly know that. And the article I was reading was looking at a replacement for Bradley Beal, which was going into big guys because they need help, even replacing a guard with a big guy.
Yes.
Tobias Harris was contacted, apparently, that's been reported, but he is in some sort of international vacation right now. He's on a vacation in another country, so there could be complications with that. Julius Randle was mentioned. Darius Garland mentioned to be brought up from Team USA Select. So they've got a number of options. And the Kevin Love thing, I mean, it probably was because of his injury that he's out of shape. But I would say both he and Draymond Green are the two that, watching pretty much the entire game against Argentina, did not look like their NBA playing selves. Just physically. You can call it fat. You can call it fluffy. You can call it whatever you want. They just look different. They look like they haven't been doing much since their season.
They look like they need a training camp.
Yes. And I think that some of them are utilizing this as a training camp, but we'll see if that's enough time to really get ready for the big tournament, which starts later this month.
Okay, so what's up with the horns down controversy? This goes back years. Vince Young, playing in Nashville, was upset over
got in a fight,
an
right?
upside down. Someone came up to him and threw up the upside down horns, and that was like a middle finger to him. He took that as an FU and got in a fight over it.
I think he was shirtless and drunk.
But that triggered him.
Yeah.
The Big 12, looking at a rule, the way I read this, it's very odd. The way I read this is you can do this with your fans. So if you're Oklahoma and you score a touchdown and you run to the end zone and you throw an upside down horns, that's fine. But if you taunt a player with it, that is an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. That's the way I read the proposed rule that the conference is trying to put into their rule book at their media day.
This is way over officious, because do you have something then for every team? Some gesture for each team that they don't like that's unsportsmanlike? Or this is a special rule because Texas has something?
Well, a lot of people are immediately saying they're protecting their cash cow in Texas.
Well, they are.
In the Big 12. And Texas isn't even the best football program. Not even close. It's Oklahoma.
But if you can do it to your fan base, is that really protecting Texas?
But this is where they just shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
There's a rule in place against taunting.
Taunting, right.
If I went up and gave Hutton the middle finger after scoring a touchdown on him, I'd get a penalty. If I waved to Hutton on my way into the end zone when he's trailing behind, I'm going to get a penalty. Mm-hmm. So why even specify? Just giving the example makes them look like they're protecting Daddy, and Daddy resides in Austin, Texas. So why even say that? It's the same taunting rule. I can't give a upside down hook 'em horns after I tackle you and you're on the ground standing over you, just like I couldn't wave at you if I did that. I don't understand the reason to even say it, because there's already taunting rules in place. Now, we can debate the merits of taunting rules. Does it really affect the game if I wave at someone when I'm going into the corner of the end zone and they're not going to catch me? Should that be a 15-yard penalty? Whatever. That's been discussed backwards and forwards. But with this, just don't say anything about the hook 'em horns. It's any hand signal that you direct immediately at a player. Because you can still go and score a touchdown, look up to your cheering section and do that. But it's also weird because they're talking about celebrating with your own fans, or you can do it on the sideline. So if I do it to the Texas section, am I going to get flagged? Is that taunting? If I turn to the Texas band and start doing it? It's just, I hate when we treat things like it's more important than it is. We are treating the hook 'em horns or a downward hook 'em horns like it's a Heil Hitler sign to Texas fans. It's not. The Pittsburgh Steelers fans treat a terrible towel like it's a religious artifact. It isn't. It's a towel. It's a stupid hand signal that you do with your fans. It's equally stupid if I walk up to a Texas fan and go, hey, we won last year, we won. And you're going to punch me because it's just all so stupid. So why even talk about it? Because you're giving more credence to something that is stupid. I'd love for a Texas fan to chime in on Twitter or somewhere else and explain to us the holy significance of putting two fingers in the air and saying hook 'em. There's not one.
And now I would think kids on other teams, smart-ass kids on other teams, are going to try to find the places they can do it. Oh, I can do it to my fan base? Well, now I'm going to do it. I didn't even think about it before, but now that I know that it bothers you, I'm going to find situations where I could do it to egg you on.
The reason they bring up the downward horns is because they were directly asked about it at their media days. And the commissioner just said, he's like, we're going to treat it like a touchdown celebration. If you celebrate with your teammates, that's one thing. If you celebrate and taunt the opponent, that's a penalty.
That's a reasonable answer.
And he used the key word, probably a penalty, because they're leaving that up to
the referees
the officials to determine the intent, which, again, goes back to the taunting that Chad was saying. They're already trying to determine the intent of taunting. And they're going to throw the flag if they feel like the player or coach or anyone involved is doing that. There would be the penalty involved. And they're using that as the example of a celebration that would be too far if you did that in the face of an opponent.
I just hate that it had to be a specific example brought up with that, because I think you just...
Is it only with Texas? What if you did that to a random player in the conference, and you just as if two players did it to each other into a camera at Texas? Is that a penalty? Like, we can take this to a completely different layer.
They have an allowance for like an orchestrated celebration with your teammates. Like if you all get in a circle and do the downward hook'em's horn, is that a penalty, or is it just a penalty if I'm celebrating individually right when I score and no one's around me and I'm looking to the crowd or looking at the cameras and doing it? It's a rule that's always been legislated by an official sees something, he says something. And he says something by throwing a flag. So if you see something egregious, you're going to throw the flag. Rashawn Golden at Tennessee got flagged because he threw 2 middle fingers in the air after a pick six to the entire Alabama crowd. And that should have been a penalty, and it was. When the official sees it, they're going to flag something like that. I just don't think there should be any discussion from the Big 12 about individual teams' hand signals. I'd say the same if Texas Tech was playing and they do the guns up, which looks like a bang bang, to their crowd. If you're doing guns down to them, I mean, is that...
Holster your weapons.
Holster your weapons. We're all going to get together and holster our weapons. You're giving something more credence than it deserves. I think it's funny when someone does the gator chomp in the swamp after they do something. Is that automatically going to be a penalty? If I turn to the guy I just sacked and I do it in his face, it's going to be a penalty anyways. We've already decided that's a penalty. But if you want to celebrate with a gator chomp when you score in the swamp at Florida, have at it. I'm all for it. If you want to mock like you're leading the band in Rocky Top when you're beating the crap out of Tennessee to the band, go ahead. Have at it. It's just ridiculous that we even have to make a rule on this.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com.
You like that segue into the VolQuest
It's
hour
great.
with Rocky Top?
It's great. I wonder, what Brent would say. Like, what could we do to VolQuest that would offend him, that would be, we're going to throw hands over this?
Well, Brent is very old school
BY.
in his approach to sports. So I think he would be mad at a player for taunting another player and putting their team in jeopardy for sure. So maybe he'll have a bit of a different take on this with someone does it. Now, I'll also say, whatever you do at a visiting team stadium that's going to draw the ire of the fans or the other team, you accept the consequences of that action also. So if you're doing something and the game's not out of hand yet, and they have a chance to come back and something's celebrated on your home field the next year or in your face, you accept those consequences.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com next on Outkick 360. Hey, it's Jonathan Hutton. Thanks for listening to Outkick 360. Be sure to subscribe to the show to have the latest podcast delivered to you each and every day, and give us 5 stars. It helps us grow our network and provide you with more great podcasts like this one.